Well, good afternoon. It's Tuesday, 16th of December, 2025, and I just want to talk about nations for this blog, and particularly for this nation. And I just was going to start with a verse from the book of Acts, which is in Acts chapter 17, and it says, "From one man he made every nation of men, that they should inhabit the whole earth, and he determined the times and the exact places set for them where they should live. God did this so that men would seek him and perhaps reach out for him and find him, though he is not far from each one of us." So I just wanted to start by saying that God has a plan for nations. He's a plan for every nation. He's got a plan for Israel. He who watches over Israel neither slumbers nor sleeps, to watch and to make sure that his plan is fulfilled. And it will be fulfilled, despite what anybody in the world might want to say. In Jeremiah, he talks about having good plans for us, plans to prosper us, and so on. And we all know the verse. And the truth is that he has got good plans for individuals. He has good plans for nations, and for every nation, he has a plan. He's got a plan for this nation. And they're good plans, but will we get to fulfill what he's got for us? Will we get to walk in it? And that's the issue. And I think the church is missing a bit here, largely, not completely, but largely. I think for the most part, the church in this nation is just involved in its own stuff. So some of it is involved in wrong stuff, like pride and transgender and wokey stuff, and some of it is involved in quite very good stuff, legitimate stuff, good teaching, good discipleship, evangelism, reaching out, just planting new churches, spreading the gospel, and so on. But at the same time, often missing the fact that we're connected to this nation, and the nation's connected to us, and our futures, they're inextricably woven together. So the future of this nation, the nation finding its right place and the plans that God has for it, depends on the church playing its part, and the church finding the plans that God has for it, the good plans and the perfect plans, depends on the church playing its part in the nation. And I think to a large extent the church says, well, that's their stuff, they do their stuff, we're not interested in politics, we don't do that. There's loads of stuff going on out there we don't like, but we can't really influence that. The best thing we do is crack on. And I used to think about that like this, the best thing we do is just reach out and get people saved, and that's probably the only thing we can do, because everything else has just gone a bit too far to be able to really have much of effect. But actually we are called to pray, and we're called to intercede for our nation. And you see this in the Old Testament. If my people who are called by my name, etc., in 2 Chronicles 7:14. Look it up, 2 Chronicles 7:14. If we pray and call out, God will change things. And if we don't, he won't. And if we don't, we'll achieve some things, but we'll never fully get to where God intended us to be, and neither will the nation. And the nation doesn't know this, but we do. We've got the inside track on this, so we need to do something about this. And there are loads of things that are wrong in this nation. We've got state-sponsored child abuse coming up with an NHS trial of 200 children from 8 to 12, I think, with puberty blockers, which is the same drugs that they use to chemically castrate sex offenders with, based on a false, evil ideology of transgenderism, that you could be born in the wrong body, that you might be born a boy but really you ought to be a girl. And we can change that, and we can cut bits off, and we can give you drugs to stop other things going on. And for girls, we can remove your breasts because your mum and your dad and the people around you told you that you ought to be a boy. This is wicked stuff, absolutely wicked. And the NHS and the government and the parents who put their kids forward for this are guilty of child abuse, and it's wrong, it's evil. We've got the whole thing of anti-Semitism now in this nation, and it just seems so massive. These massive pro-Palestine marchers, which have been allowed to chant and call for quite explicitly the elimination of Israel, the genocide of a people, whilst falsely claiming that there's been a genocide in Gaza. And I mean falsely, and if you want to contact me, we can go through that, but it is false, it is lies. There has been no starvation, mass starvation in Gaza. There's been no famine. There's been no genocide. In fact, Hamas recently have admitted that out of 67,000 people who have perhaps died, 58,000 of them were their own fighters. All right. And also the birth rate in Gaza in the last year was 50,000. So there's no such thing as a genocide. It's all lies. It's evil lies. But we've got all that, which now leaves our Jewish population in this country feeling threatened and fearful, and they're being attacked. They're being attacked regularly. I think it's about 8 attacks a day on Jewish people now, from people who've listened to those lies and feel justified in attacking Jewish people. So we've got all of that going on. We've got radical Islam, which wants to, in radical Islam, they've got a saying, first the Saturday people, that's the Jews, then the Sunday people, that's us, the Christians. And at the moment, they're going for the Jews, and if they got their way, we'd be next. And actually, in countries where they can get their way, like Nigeria, the Christians are next. And I think it's about 10,000 Christians have been slaughtered by Muslims. So you can see what's coming, and if we ignore this stuff, we ignore it at our peril. We are importing a culture or cultures which don't align with ours in any way at all, and we're just saying, welcome, come in, have a nice hotel, have some money, have a phone, and just go out and do what you want. And if people protest, we'll clamp down on them, so don't worry. So, and with radical Islam, you've got an ideology that wants to kill us, wants to destroy our society, and we have a government that wants to introduce an Islamophobia bill, which says that if we criticize those that want to kill us and destroy our society, we will be guilty of a crime. So that's just how far wrong things have gone in this country. But we need to pray. And it's no good as a church just saying, well, we'll carry on with our stuff and it'll all be fine. And we'll bury our heads. Or the best thing we can do is just get people saved. That's good. It's very good. It's marvelous, but it's not enough. And it won't crack this. And God has got plans for us. And He's got plans for us as a nation. And the time has come when we need to pray. And I speak to myself on this because I'm not good at this. I'm not brilliant at it. I forget. I need to chivvy myself. I need to provoke myself to pray for this nation to see change. And we need to be clear about it. We need to stand up and to say when things are wrong as well, because often as believers, we just let this stuff, we think it's too big and we just need to keep quiet, keep our heads down, and we'll be all right. But the day will come when we can't keep our heads down. If that's our attitude, if that's our approach, I'll just keep my head down. The day will come when we can't. Either that or we'll have to deny Christ in order to do it. So basically, it's time to pray, folks. And actually, in this Hexham area, in where I am in Northumberland, we're going to have a Pray for the Nation Day in January, which we'll publicise nearer the time. But it's time to pray, and it's time to seek God, and to seek God for change in this nation, for us to find our destiny and the fulfillment of God's promises to us, all of them, and for the nation to find theirs, because we're like this. We're intertwined, and neither of us are going to find what God has got for us, the nation or the church, until the church stands up to do what it's meant to do. Okay, have a good day, and don't forget to pray.